let me introduce the Dreamweaver technique. It's something that I've developed from integrative neural theory. And looking at how I could apply integrative neural theory to some of the most common challenges we face as therapists. Nearly every therapist I've ever met will agree, I'm sure, that motivational interviewing, solution-focused therapy, having to cyclically go around this pattern with clients who are unmotivated, when they can't recognize a change or they go into resistance, relapse. This pattern can be really challenging if you have someone coming in repeatedly, getting them to the point in the session of being ready to work on that, and then nothing happens and we go back around. They can partly see it. We can see it. It's often simple. And that resistance, it's really sad for them. So, whilst I always make sure my sessions contain an ample, extended amount of evidence-based practice, what's wrong with using some of these techniques to enhance what we're doing when we've already tried these things multiple times? So let me converge things down to something that I've done a couple of times when the need arose, when everything else has been tried, and even within that session, and how this technique that I've developed, called the Dreamweaver technique, really only takes a few minutes and has made some incredible changes for people very quickly. So, we've got the scenario, a person coming in, they pretty much know what needs to happen, but they can't get there. And often a person like that is in transient states of distress, emotionally dysregulated. So we need to do some kind of relaxation in the therapy session, and a way that they can carry that with them later on throughout their day and week until we see them again. So, deep breathing, posture, visualization, grounding with the three things we see, hear, feel, they're all common. Now, if we're wanting to use that to go further than just the imaginal exposure of looking at how we'd like things to be, to gain insight, which is what these people need, insight that is meaningful and realistic. Now, let me just get you to play along if you like, but please don't do this while driving. Be cautious. This is not the full process. I have a Udemy course, udemy.com, which explains this in further detail. Here's a couple of the worksheets that are available there, a little summarizing sheet and a therapist script. There's a lot more in there. And an article I've written yet to be published. So, what I did was to look at the neurological patterns that people get stuck in, emotions and everything else, and what actually gets them out of it. What are the pathways that people tend to go through? And you know what it is often? There is creativity in there. The neural network of creativity is activated at some point in meaningful therapeutic process. So, if they're not engaging with the process we're using, why not use their own creativity? Some people need some prompting. We all have creativity because we dream. So, let's do a little daydream. If I close my eyes for a moment, and I notice those shapes and colours behind the eye, those smudges and blurs where our eye is trying to make sense of the little tiny bits of colour that's still coming through our eyelids. I can make that into something. Oh, I'm getting a box today. Maybe it's a fridge. Oh, now it's shifting. Get our client to do that. Notice this thing. Now let's make it into a story. This can be part of relaxation. This story. All stories have an introduction and a next chapter. What have you got there? Notice. And who might be there? Or is it interesting that someone isn't there? Maybe there's a dog there. Maybe there's no cat there. Maybe there's a curious elephant. Or you would expect your partner to be there and they're not in this journey. Perhaps walking on a beach and you encounter a fridge. Who knows? Or perhaps you've got a full drive, driving through the sky. Be as creative as you like. Anything may come up. And add to this. Now, in a story, there's a hero and there's a bad guy. Put those in there. So make it some fun. don't have to share this out loud. It's in fact quicker if we do it in our head. And I watch for the client's facial expressions. It's powerful biofeedback for the therapist. Breathing, relaxing, our posture shifts, our skin tone changes, our eyelid shapes change. Noticing this story from start to finish, add more things in. Connect with the 5 senses within it. What do we see here? Feel there? Taste in the air? What do you see nearby and far away? What can you hear? What else could you imagine that you could hear? Now, within that daydream, were there some milestones, things that popped up that went, oh, that was really interesting? The milestones, I've got a little acronym here, MUSE. Milestones, unusual, synchronicities, and elaborate. So, the milestones in the dream. What's unusual about those? Are there sensations that appeared in your body? Some little subtle, nuanced reaction that came up for that? And does that have a synchronicity of anything that's going on in your life? Now, the Dreamweaver technique is a much longer process in what I developed, but just adding that much has often, in my practice, got to the point to the person where they've just opened their eyes and gone, I see it now. This is like my dreams or whatever. It's all telling me something. And I'm like, yeah, great, thanks. Oh, really got it there. But hey, I can't even see my own struggles sometimes that are right before my face. That's life, that's the human psyche, and that's our job. So if we can connect with them in a way that they can do that without it being too confrontational of looking like a strange textbooky technique that they didn't want to do, then why not? Perhaps it's if you can do that in a safe way, you can introduce this into a relaxation. If you're stuck with someone, please try everything else first and make sure you get supervision. Make sure you're ready for such a thing, of how to deal with that. I've done a lot of training in managing dissociation and other complex traumas. So don't discredit that we can bring up some big things and to be able to know how to contain them. You might want to do a containment task of imagining a container we can place this in. We can't put it in a container forever or will cause physiological manifestations of problems. So make sure that you have a timer on that container that you can come back to. And now at the end of such a session, if you've been following along with this or if you're doing this with a client, always make sure you walk people out and don't leave them stuck in literalism. You'll interpret this however way you need to for what you need to that's most effective within your life without overtaking your life. And taking a breath, shaking it off, look around you. Notice how if you've done some deep breathing and posture and you've gone inside your head, you're always a little different to you were before you started this. It's a brief, intense form of relaxation. So get yourself back to being fully awake, counting out 3 to 2 to 1, waking up fully, being completely aware and in the present moment where you need to be in the now, and finish the session with when do we need to catch up next? It'll be interesting what unfolds from that, and go forth to what you need to do from now on. What is it that you're doing? Check with the person so that you know that they're fully awake and aware and they're on the right track. And make sure you end in a suggestive way of, it's really cool what you came up with today, and I wonder how you're going to implement what we talked about in even the most subtle way. Will it shift a curiosity within another element that you could pick up on in what you're already doing? I'm looking forward to hearing in the comments. Thank you.